Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please click the subscribe button and the bell button for a notification. In my previous video, I have talked about the properties of operations on integers. If you haven't watched that video, please click the suggested video above. Now for this lesson, we are going to talk about your fifth module in your first quarter in Math 7 that is about expressing rational numbers from fraction form to decimal form and vice versa. Now first, we will express fraction to decimal. To express fraction to decimal form, follow these steps. For first step, find a number you can multiply by the bottom of the fraction to make it 10 or 100 or 1000 or any one followed by zeros. For second step, multiply both top and bottom by that number. For third step, write down just the top number, putting the decimal point in the correct spot, that is one space from the right-hand side for every zero in the bottom number. Let's apply the steps. Example, express 3/4 to decimal form. For step 1, we can multiply 4 by 25. That gives us 100. Now our second step, we multiply the top and bottom by 25. 4 multiplied by 25 is equal to 100. That is our denominator. And 3 multiplied by 25 is equal to 75. That is our numerator. Now don't be confused. 3/4 is equal to 75 hundredths. 75 hundredths is just a higher term of 3/4. For third step, write down 75 with the decimal point 2 spaces from the right because 100 has 2 zeros. The answer, 3/4, is equal to 75 hundredths. Another example, expressing 1/3 to decimal form. There is no way to multiply 3 to become 10 or 100 or any one followed by zeros, but we can calculate an approximate decimal by choosing to multiply by, say, 333. Multiply the top and bottom by 333. That gives us 1/3 is equal to 333 over 999. For a third step, now 999 is nearly 1,000, so let us write down 333 with the decimal point 3 spaces from the right because 1,000 has 3 zeros. That gives us 333 thousandths. That is accurate to only 3 decimal places. Of course, I love to make things easy in math. Well, my suggestion when we talk about like multiplying it with 10 or 100, we don't have to go to 1,000. It would take us too long. What number should I multiply with 13 to give me 1,000? Now, this is something that I have learned from my elementary grades until I was in college. This is the traditional way we express fraction to decimal. But mind you, you can also use the previous operation that I have talked about if the number or the denominator is a fraction of 100. Let's say the denominator is 4, you'd be easier in multiplying it by 25. If the denominator is 20, you'd be easier by multiplying it by 5. It gives you 100. That would be faster if the number is a factor of 100. But what if the number is not a factor of 100? Let's say 4 over 21. It is not a factor of 100. 21 is not a factor of 100. So the easier way to do this before we do the guessing game is we divide the numerator 4 by the denominator 21. Remember, the numerator divided by the denominator. Now 4 should be inside that division bar. 4 divided by 21 cannot be, so we put a decimal point and then we affix 0. Of course, we align the decimal point in our quotient. The answer in division is quotient. Now we can divide 40 by 21. That gives us 1. We multiply 1 and 21. This is the traditional way we do division. 40 less 21 is 19. We affix another 0 and bring it down. That is 190 divided by 21. Now the answer is 9. Multiply it by 21. That gives us 189. The difference is 1. We affix another 0 to 4. And then we bring it down. Now we have 10. 10 divided by 21 is 0 because we cannot divide 10 by 21. So we write it down. We have 0. We still have 10. We affix another 0. That gives us 100. Now clearly 21 is more than 20 because 20 multiplied by 5 is 100. That's how I do things with multiplication, especially if the multiplier is a 2-digit number. I normally round it up or round it down, whichever is closer. And then I also round up or round down the number so that it would be easier for me to identify what should be the correct quotient. And remember that it's fine if you will get a wrong answer while computing. That's normal. You just have to try again and again before you achieve the correct answer. Now let's have 4 here. We have 84. And the remainder is 16. Now we are down to 4 decimal places. I just only want to get it through to the thousandths place. Now the thousandths digit is 0. Now the right side of 0 is 4. In our rules in rounding off, 4 is always round down. That gives us the final answer, that is 19 hundredths. Let's have another example. 25 divided by 16 is equal to what? Now, there are a lot of ways that you can divide this number. This is an improper fraction. You can convert it to a mixed number, that is 1 and 25 less 16 is 9. 1 and 9 over 16. You can just divide 9 divided by 16, but in this operation, I opted to use 25 divided by 16. Now 25 divided by 16, we can have it 1 is a whole number, multiplied by 16. We have 9 as the difference. Then we have to go to 4 decimal places for us to answer it to the thousandths place. Now, we put a decimal point and then we affix 0 and bring it down. That gives us 90 divided by 16, 5. That's 80. The difference is 10. We affix another 0 and bring it down. 100. That's 6. 96. The difference is 4. We affix another 0 and bring it down. 40. Obviously, that's only 2. Now 2 multiplied to 16 is 32. And then 8. Now, I have written it on the right side because I don't have any space left. On the lower side, now I have 80 because we have fixed another 0 and bring it down. 80 divided by 16 gives us 5. And we ended up with no remainder. Therefore, 25 over 16 in the decimal form is 1, and 5,625 10,000ths. But I really want is to get to the thousandths place value only. Now, we're going to round off 2. We are centered on the thousandths place value. Now, the right side of 2 is 5. Many students get confused with this. I should admit, I got confused with this. I was taught the wrong way before. Now, remember, if the number or the place value that you are rounding off is an even number, 5 should be rounded down. Again, even numbers are 2, 4, 6, 8, and 0. If the number on the right side is 5, then it is round down. If the number that you're rounding off is an odd number, that is 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9, and you got a 5 on the right side, it is round up. This only applies if the number is 5, because we know that if it is 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, that is automatically round down. And if it is 6, 7, 8, and 9, that is automatically round up. But in the case of 5, this is a different scenario. Remember, for odd numbers, round up for 5. For even numbers, round down for 5. In this case, the number is 2 and it is even, therefore we round down. Final answer is 1 and 562 thousandths. Let's have another example. 5 over 35. This is one thing that I have taught my students before when we deal with fractions. I really want to do a tutorial about fractions. There are a lot of students having trouble with this part in mathematics. And mind you, fractions won't leave you. Fractions will come back again and again. It will come back in middle school, high school. It will come back in college. Even if we have variables involved, there is always a fraction. I'm telling you the truth. I've done that already. Now, if our given is 5 over 35, we do not just automatically divide 5 divided by 35, because we have to dissect the fraction first. Now, in my previous examples, I have already dissected it, and I have to proceed to division already. In this case, 5 over 35 dissected is in the higher term. If you have memorized your table of multiplication, you can say that 5 over 35 is in the higher term. Therefore, we can still reduce it. We can still reduce it to lighten up our burden in the division side. Now, how do we reduce fractions? We reduce fractions by dividing it by 1. Oh no, dividing it by 1. Have you heard that before? Well, in my case, I heard that when I was reviewing for my board exam in teaching. That's the first time I heard that, because my previous teachers have not talked about it, or maybe I was just not listening to the lesson. I don't know, but by the time that I was reviewing, that was sad for me. That was the time that I realized this, but I am sharing this to you now while you are still in grade 7 or in whatever grade you're in. When you reduce a fraction to lower term or lowest term, you're dividing it by 1. Remember, when you reduce a fraction, you do not change the value. The identity property of division is 1. That is something I have talked about in my previous video. If you haven't watched it, you have to watch it to understand it. Now, 1 converted to fraction, it can be 2 halves, 3 thirds, 4 fourths, 5 fifths, 6 sixths. 6 sixths is equal to 1. Therefore, we are dividing the fraction by 1 to get its lowest term. But the thing here is you have to find out a fraction that is equal to 1, that if we divide 5 over 35 into that fraction will give us a lower term. Therefore, the numerator and the denominator of the fraction should be the GCF of 5 and 35. In this case, fraction should be 5 fifths, because 5 is the GCF of 5 and 35. We have the answer 1/7. I think 1/7 is easier to divide than 5 over 35. We divide 1 divided by 7. Can it be? So we put a decimal point and we affix 0. 10 divided by 7 is 1. 7, we have the difference 3. Affix another 0. 30 divided by 7 is 4. 28, the difference is 2. Now, can you imagine if now we are dividing 5 divided by 35, 35 being the divisor? I think that will take us a lot of time. Yes, we will achieve with the same answer, but no, because it will consume a lot of time as compared to 1 and 7. Now let's continue. We have fixed another 0 and we bring it down. 20 divided by 7 is 2. 2 multiplied by 7 is 14. 20 less 14 is 6. We have fixed another 0 and bring it down, giving us 60 divided by 7. We have 8 multiplied by 7 is equal to 56. 60 less 56 is equal to 4. Now we have 4 decimal places. We can now round this off to the nearest thousandths. Now our final answer is 143 thousandths. And that ends our lesson in converting our fractions to decimals. Now, I want to remind you that if the denominator is a factor of 100 or is a factor of 10, you can just do the first step that I have introduced. That's easier if just the denominator is a factor of 10 or 100. Don't go to 1,000. It will take us a lot of time guessing what would be the number to be multiplied. I just recommend you to do it with 10 and 100. And if the denominator is not a factor of 10 and 100, you should proceed to the division process. Just not to take up so much time with the guessing game. I hope you learned a lot, because now I'm going to proceed to the vice versa, that is expressing decimal to fraction.
Please click the subscribe button and bell button for notifications. Thank you.
Now, to express a decimal number to a fraction, these are the steps. First, write down the decimal divided by 1 like this. Decimal divided by 1. Next, multiply both top and bottom by 10 for every number after the decimal point. For example, if there are 2 numbers after the decimal point, then use 100. If there are 3, then use 1,000, etc., etc., etc. Then simplify or reduce the fraction. Let's have an example. Express 75 hundredths to fraction. For step 1, write 75 hundredths divided by 1. Then we multiply both top and bottom by 100 because there are 2 digits after the decimal point. So that is 10 multiplied by 10, that is equal to 100. Now that gives us 75 hundredths multiplied by 100 is 75. And 1 multiplied by 100 is 100. That gives us 75 over 100, or still 75 hundredths. Turns, you see how it turns the top number into whole number. Now, the goal here is the top number should be a whole number. Now for a third step, simplify the fraction by dividing 5 both top and bottom. This took me 2 steps. Now 75 divided by 5 is 15, and 100 divided by 5 is 20. Now, again, you divide 75 hundredths over 1, which is equal to 5/5. That gives us 15 over 20, which is still not the lowest term. You can do this if you're just trying or you're not certain about the GCF of the numbers, or you're dealing with large numbers and you're having a hard time looking for the GCF. This will still give you the same answer. Now, we again divide the fraction by 5. Now, 15 over 20 divided by 5, or should I say 1? Sometimes I forget it. Or divided by 5/5. That gives us also 1. Now the answer, or the final answer, is 3/4. We can simply get the GCF of 75 and 100. Just follow the steps. Now, the given here is the listing method. As far as I know, we have 3 methods in looking for the GCF. I really wanted to make a tutorial about that. I hope I can make some time and make a tutorial about finding the GCF fast and easy. Now, this is the listing method. List down all the multiples of 75 and 100. and find the greatest common factor. The greatest is 25, and it is common in both 75 and 100. Therefore, we pick 25. Now simplify the fraction by finding their GCF. 75 over 100 should be divided by 1, but 1 is equal to 25 over 25. That is equal to 3/4. The answer, 75 hundredths, is equal to 3/4. Note that 75 over 100 is called a decimal fraction and 3/4 is called a common fraction. Another example is 2 and 35 hundredths to a fraction. When there is a whole number part, put the whole number aside and bring it back at the end. Put the 2 aside and work on 35 hundredths. Now write down 35 hundredths over 1 and then multiply both top and bottom by 100. That is 35 over 100. Now simplify the fraction by dividing their GCF. Now the GCF is 5/5. That is equal to 1. Now our answer is 7 over 20. Now we bring back the 2. Don't forget the 2. That is a whole number. Now our final answer is 2 and 7 over 20. Of course, I really want to make things easy just the way I did before. But the secret here, I don't know if you've noticed, I think it's quite obvious in how I read. It's how I read the numbers. Point 1. I've heard this a million times, and I told them that is not the proper way to read that. That is 1/10, because the last digit is placed in the tenths place value. That is 12 hundredths, not 0.12. That is 123 thousandths. That is 4 and 5 tenths. That is the right way to read the decimal numbers. Now the secret is with the reading in converting decimal to fraction. Read it properly and you'll find the correct answer. 0.2 is incorrect. 2/10 is correct. By simply reading it 2/10, we got the fraction. We skipped like 2 steps or 3 steps. Don't you think this is simplified? 2/10. Now we look for the GCF. And the GCF of 2 and 10 is 2. We think of a fraction that is equal to 1, that if we divide by 2/10 will give us the same value of a fraction but in its lowest term. That's dividing it by 2/2. 2 divided by 2 is equal to 1. 10 divided by 2 is equal to 5. The answer is 1/5. And that's our final answer. Let's have another example. Read it loud. 22 hundredths. 22 hundredths. Next, we find the GCF of 22 and 100. That is 2/2. 2/2 again is equal to 1. That is still the same thing. Now the final answer, we have 11 over 50. Don't you think this is a simpler version of what we have done earlier? Now let's have 2 and 5 tenths. The secret is with the reading. Read it properly. You'll get the fraction properly. We set aside 2. We just write 5 tenths. Find the GCF of 5 and 10. 5/5, that is equal to 1/2. Now we bring back 2 and add it to 1/2. We have our final answer, 2 and 1/2. And that's the end of our lesson in expressing the decimals to fractions. I hope you have learned a lot. I hope that you will adapt with the hints, tips, tricks, techniques that I'm always spilling, especially in my description box. I always put there that I am giving away hints, tips, and techniques, and that is what I'm doing because I want to break the stigma. Again, I want to break the stigma. I want to make math easy. I want to ease your burden. I mean, I understand it's hard in online school, but don't worry, as long as I'm here, I'm going to upload more and more videos every week. Stay tuned and thank you for watching.